Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here with the System Simplified podcast, where we interview top entrepreneurs, founders, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this podcast is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. At Business Success Consulting Group, we create custom processes and tailor-made business systems so businesses can thrive and grow. All right, and it is my pleasure to introduce today's guest, which is Robin Shachman. Hi, Robin.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. It's great to have you on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm pleasure to be here.
Yeah. And Robin is the executive director of BNI Oregon and Southwest Washington. And BNI is Business Network International. And Robin has been the executive director of BNI for Oregon and Southwest Washington for almost 20 years, which is pretty impressive. So she knows what she's talking about. And Robin also is a good friend. I've known her. I work with her. And I'm so excited about our conversation today, because we are going to talk about systematizing your network. Because that's what BNI is all about. It's systematizing your network and making sure that you have a machine that is working and giving you referrals and business. And I've been a member of BNI now for over 5 years. I've been a director in BNI working under Robin. And so I'm definitely sold on BNI, but I wanted to talk about how can it help business owners? So they're all listening to us right now, and entrepreneurs, business owners, CEOs. How can BNI help? So we're going to have a whole conversation on that. So Robin, why don't we start? First of all, let's tell the listeners more about you. And you have a great story on how you actually got introduced to BNI and how you became the executive director. So I'd love for you to share that.
Sure. I was an entrepreneur many years ago, of course, still am today. And I started out by just creating my own little business. I was a desktop publisher and technical editor and had no idea how to make the phone ring. Like, I knew I was good at what I did, but the phone wasn't ringing. So I actually mass mailed my resume to everybody in the yellow pages in my own industry, asking them, how do you get your clients? Do you have any overflow work I can help you with? Little did I realize that really that was a collaborative or a cooperative way of approaching running my business. And somebody reached out to me and said, you need to go check out BNI. And so I did. I became a member 23 years ago. And my very first referral paid for my dues for 7 years. And this idea of having other people learn about me, and me, of course, with that giver's gain philosophy, learning about them, we positively spoke about everybody out in the community when we met people. And I received referrals to do business and grow my network. And I knew that way of growing my business was so powerful. I wanted to share it with other people. So I stepped into the executive director role and really helped thousands of other small businesses grow using this concept of word of mouth marketing.
That's great. So tell us more about BNI, and especially in Oregon and Southwest Washington. What's the structure? How do you become a member, etc.?
So we have 59 chapters and almost 1,200 members. And each of these chapters meet on a weekly basis to build relationships and get to know each other. And they go out and find referrals for each other. And it's such an easy process that you really have to see it to kind of see it in action and understand how it works. And of course, the best way to find a chapter is to go to our website, bnioregon.com. You can click on chapters and you can search by area, day of the week, time of the day. You can even search for professions and just go meet the people and see which one might be a good fit for you.
For sure. And 59 chapters. I mean, that's so well done. That's incredible. You grew that region. Was the region existing? Was it existing before you took over as the executive director?
Yeah, there were just over 100 members when I started, so 20 years ago. And I don't recall how many chapters that was, probably 6 or 7, I think. And I've expanded to 59 plus chapters today. And we have 7 new chapters in formation. Quite a few are actually remaining online. So we have 3 formats now to really speak to anybody's style. We have an online only format. We have chapters that are returning to the in-person 100%. And we have a new hybrid model for those that like the in-person but also appreciate the online platform. And hybrid means that the chapter would meet in person on the first week of the month, and then the remaining weeks would be online.
Great. Yeah, that would be a great model. But again, 59 chapters, it's amazing, all over Oregon and Southwest Washington, 1,200 members. So you 12x basically where you started. And what I love about BNI, as you mentioned, is the structure. It's a very structured, process-driven, process-oriented community, I would say, or model, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And Robin, I know that there are listeners that are listening to us right now and said, structure? I don't want any structure, right?
I come across that quite a bit with entrepreneurs. I don't need structure. That's why I'm a business owner. This is, I'm doing my own thing. But the reality is that all business owners need a little bit of structure. And being a part of a BNI chapter is just enough structure to stay focused, create some positive accountability, reach your goals, but allow you the freedom to run your business the way you want to. And a lot of entrepreneurs know that they need to market, but they have no idea how to do so. And this can be that systematized way of doing it and making it happen and being profitable for you.
That's exactly right. So it's kind of like, for me, I like to look at it as like the add water and mix, right? It's like it's already, somebody thought about it beforehand. And it's not just a random thought, right? It's like a really, there's a lot of experience that went into creating the systems for BNI. Dr. Ivan Meisner started BNI in the 1980s. He has a great story that people can read. It's in the Giver's Gain book. And there are many books by him that he wrote, and you can Google it or search it on YouTube and you'll hear the story. You can also go to BNI podcast. There is a great podcast that there is out there for BNI. And so BNIpodcast.com. And it's really that method that works, that after a lot of research and a lot of trial and error, it's a method that works on how to actually get referrals to your business. And like anything else, if you understand the system, it will work. If you don't, then it will be basically a nuisance of like, oh yeah, I have to wake up early and I have to show up to the meeting every week, etc. But that's for if you don't understand the system. If you understand the system, you totally make it work. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you that, in order to really experience that, you have to visit in order to understand that. It's kind of like, if you don't experience that, it's hard to explain. I know it for myself before I went to visit different chapters, and then I really understood what it was about. Because I'll tell you a story. I don't know if I told you that, but I had an employee that worked for me, and she was doing my business development, and somebody invited her to BNI. So she went to visit the BNI chapter, and she came back to the office and she says, well, Adi, I think we should join that chapter. You go there at 7:00 every Wednesday. And if I miss a time, then I need to get a substitute. So you'll have to substitute for me. And I was like, no way. What are you talking about? No way. Right. Because those are the little things. But then I went and experienced it on my own a few years later after she left. I go like, oh my gosh, this is like an amazing group of entrepreneurs that work together for a common goal of actually growing each other businesses. They are enthusiastic. They care, they listen. There is so much acknowledgement and so much recognition of everything that is right. And there's such amazing energy that is the way I describe BNI, right? And the only way to experience it is really to go and see. And now it's really easy. All you need to do is join a Zoom call as opposed to going in person until we all meet in person again. So I know that it's really hard to explain unless you really experience that. But in terms of a system of getting more referrals, and it's your marketing systems, how would you describe that system?
Wow. Over the years, I've met people who have told me I'm really good at what I do, but I have no idea how to demonstrate how good I am to the public. And this is really that place to do so. And so when entrepreneurs come to a BNI chapter and they become a member, there are several things that can be done that are part of that system that really help to show success. And one is showing up. You have to be there. If you are not there, they have no idea what kind of business you're looking for that week. And vice versa. You can't help them with referrals either.
Right.
The other part of that system is be willing to invest in your own referral education. Most entrepreneurs are really good at what they do. They've been trained on how to do graphic design, web design, or they know how they have licenses for insurance or real estate, etc., but they don't often take the time to get education on how to build a referral-based business. This is one of those pieces of that system. Be willing to build relationships. Many years ago, somebody asked, so what do you do? And I said, well, I teach people how to build their business by referral. And their response was, well, why wouldn't you just pick up the phone and make cold calls? That's how salespeople do it. And my thought is, there are very few people in this world that actually enjoy that. So why not find a system and a team and a group of people who you can really just build solid relationships with to a point where they know, like, and trust you. And your name is the first name on the tip of their tongue when someone has a need for your service. That's what relationship development is all about. They talk about you positively and you them with that giver's gain philosophy. And so that's where the referrals come, is by showing up, investing in your education, and building those relationships. And that is really the system that we use to develop a really solid referral-based network.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's that, part of that, you touched on it, is the education. And, with all my business education, nobody ever taught me how to network, right? Yeah. And when I used to network, I would go to an event and, it would be like, first of all, I was dreading it, right? Because it's kind of like, it's the giving out your business cards and how many people can you meet? And it's just like this superficial way of, that doesn't really, it's more transactional, or it's nothing. It does really nothing other than make you feel uncomfortable for me. And I'm sure it's true for other people as well. But one of the things that I got from BNI is the education of how to actually network to help others and to build that network around you, and those relationships that are, that's how we develop our friendship. I feel like I know you so well because we build relationships. We're not transactional. Okay, Robin, I'm going to send you some people that is going to join BNI and you're going to send me some referral. It's not that way. It's really like knowing the person, liking the person, trusting the person, right? It's that education on how to do that. That is a key component of BNI. One of the key components and one of the benefits that BNI gives you is that basically you get a PhD in how to be a great networker. That's really what it is.
Right. I have had several members in the past tell me that this is the master's degree or PhD in business that they never received because they just don't teach this kind of business development in school.
That's very true. Mm-hmm. Yeah, many of my clients that are like, let's say, have a profession like dentists, engineers, etc., that they go, okay, well, we went to school, like let's say a dentist I hear it so often. We went to dental school, but nobody taught us other than maybe a few courses at the end on how to run it. But even then, it was a short course, right? So that applies also to networking. We didn't learn how to network. I think that if business schools had that curriculum that Dr. Ivan Meisner developed, there would be like much better business people because you need to know that, right? So that's part of the systems. BNI has very specific core values, and one of them, of course, is the main one is the giver's gain. And if you build your system, that's right, that's the foundation. So let's talk about that, how you build a system around giver's gain. And you can also give me examples of how you do it or any stories that you want to share.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is what not to do. Giver's gain is not a sword. You can't use it with the expectation of receiving something in return. So the idea of giver's gain is that you are always supporting other people. You look around the room and you see, how can I help you? Who can I introduce you to? What support do you need? And without the expectation of receiving, and it will come back tenfold. Because if everyone in the network that you are a part of is always looking at giving, everyone's going to be receiving as well.
That's very true. Absolutely. And that's, you just build your systems around it. It's even when you develop your sales process, it's around the giver's gain, right? It's not around, okay, I'm pitching something, I'm going to get I'm giving you a little bit of free advice, I'm expecting something in return. You don't. You really live by it, but you also incorporate it into what you do, for sure. So if one of our listeners right now is wondering, what else can they do? What can they do in order to get their marketing systems up to a point where it's actually workable? I know you're very systems oriented. So that's what we're talking about, like very specific, like in terms of documentation, in terms of creating the process. What would you say to that person?
First, think about where do your referrals typically come from and where might they go to? And I would make a list of some of those specifically professions that would be great referral sources for you. And you want to make sure that you then go find a network that has those people in those professions in them, because that's where you're going to generate the most referrals from. And if those people are in your network, you can then give to them because you have clients that are going to potentially need their service.
Right.
And definitely go visit a few different organizations, a few different groups. You want to find the one that's the best fit for you. Of course, love to have you visit BNI, but that doesn't mean that is the best fit for you. So make sure that you visit a few and find a good dynamic fit for you, whether that's the professions that are listed. It could be the day of the week, time of the day, the format. And if you're looking for that positive accountability and structure, definitely come check out a BNI chapter.
Excellent. Definitely. You know, one of the things that we hear very commonly is that, let's say, people are successful. You know, we want to associate ourselves with successful people. And one of the things that they say, well, I'm too busy, right? I'm too busy. I have too much going on, overwhelmed. You know, we hear it. I work so hard. I don't have time for structure or for structured marketing in my life.
Yep, I hear that all the time.
And your response?
My response would be, well, first of all, everybody's busy. The question is, what are you busy doing? And if you were to add that type of structured networking with that positive accountability, could it actually be freeing up time to work with the clients that you love to work with? Mm-hmm. And, you know, oftentimes people will come and say, my book of business is totally full, but I have all these clients that are such a pain in the rear. I don't enjoy working with them. So one of the things that networking can do for you is to help you fine tune your message, reach out and connect with the right clients that you love to work with. And that way you're spending more time on the clients and the projects that you really enjoy. And it might be fewer of them, but maybe they're higher dollar volume or returning contracts versus working with 100 people that take up 60 hours a week of your time. You could be working with 50 clients that are taking up 30 hours and free you up a little bit to do some of the things you love to do. So that's one of the powerful things about being a part of a BNI chapter.
For sure. It definitely organized. Once you put order and organization in it, you actually get more time, right? And I know you are so good with time management. You know, I've listened to some of your workshops and I know you are very, both of you and I are super busy. And sometimes it's amazing how we get things done, but you're like so on top of it, Robin. So tell us some advice that you get, some tips, tricks that you use for time management.
Sure. The number one thing is make sure that you schedule nearly everything and then honor your calendar. So, for example, oftentimes people will put a meeting on their calendar, but what they won't do is schedule the preparation time and the follow-up time. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to be scrambling at the last minute to put together a PowerPoint or put together your materials or even think about it. You actually need to schedule time well in advance to put some thought into it. And then when you show up, you're prepared and not stressed. And then rather than scrambling in the evening to follow up on something that you promises you made, make sure you have scheduled time for that. And then create boundaries for yourself. When I had small children, I made sure that when they were off the bus, I was done working. And so I don't schedule things after 3:30 in the afternoon. So make sure that you know what your boundaries are and hold to them. You don't need to tell people that I'm sorry, I can't meet with you. I'm taking my kids to the zoo. It's simply, would another time work better for you? I'm not available at the time you've requested. And that's it. So those are my top tips on time management, calendaring, honoring your calendar, and be here now, wherever you're supposed to be in the moment.
Absolutely. And also color coding the calendar. I learned that. Yes.
Yes. Color code your calendar.
So great. I mean, that is a great advice on the time management, and that's how you create more time management in your day. Mm-hmm. And, so we talked about Get Givers Gain, time management, so many tips about systematizing. you are such a great process person. You systematize even more. We talk about the overall systematization of BNI, but you write the most amazing manuals, and you train on it, etc. From your perspective, what's the most important? I will rephrase the question. Like, what is the most value that you get out of having processes and procedures for your company?
Oh my gosh, clarity in the brain. One tip that I have for a lot of small businesses is that when you do or try something, and if it didn't work perfect, that's okay. Make notes, make adjustments, and do it now. Don't wait until the next time you run that promotion or run that campaign or send that communication. Make those changes now. So when it comes up, you don't have to think, oh my gosh, we were going to make those 5 changes. What were they? And now I'm stressed because I don't want to make that mistake again. That type of system for me is super powerful. So when that event or communication comes up again, I don't have to think about what changes we tried a year ago. It's already documented and ready to go.
Absolutely. So it gives that consistency and that ability to look back and see what works and what didn't work. And yes. It allows you to scale. I mean, that's how you scaled, honestly, right? I mean, you scaled your team, you scaled the number of chapters. It takes that ambiguity and that inconsistency out of what you're doing. So I agree with you.
Definitely. And you've probably heard this phrase before, but I use it all the time. Do 6 things 1,000 times, not 1,000 things 6 times. If something doesn't work, don't go and try something new, because that just confuses your messaging, your branding, your clients get confused. But 6 things 1,000 times means you just fine tune it a little bit every time, create some consistency. Then your clients become accustomed and used to and excited about the next time you run that promotion or offer that product or service. They know what to expect. And then the little tiny adjustments you make are simply improvements upon, and your clients actually appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yes, I agree. That's part of having good processes and procedures is also allows you, and it's risk mitigation, but it's also allows you to take your customer service to the wow and give the wow factor, right? Like delivering more because they know what to expect and you know how to deliver that. So that's for sure.
Yeah. And make sure your customers, clients have a way to provide feedback and that you take it genuine to heart and actually implement it. They know and see that you're listening and they will stick around with you longer because of it.
For sure. And don't be afraid of asking for the feedback.
That's offended by the feedback.
Say it again?
Don't be offended by the feedback, right?
That's exactly right. Don't get offended by the feedback and want the feedback. Just have that, okay, I am going to hear whatever somebody else is telling me because I want to learn from it and I want to improve, right? So, one of the core values of BNI is lifelong learning. So there is definitely the education piece, but it's also, I think learning is also learning from your mistakes, learning from your customers, learning from what works and what doesn't work, etc. So it's not just learning from a podcast, but it's also learning from experience.
Definitely.
Yeah. Speaking of core values, one of my favorite ones is the recognition part.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the things that really impressed me about BNI when I first visited the group that I decided to join is that people were really recognizing each other and very appreciative of each other. And it doesn't always happen out there, that people actually stand up and give you a testimonial or they tell you how well you've done something. And BNI, together with the positive attitude, the positive attitude and the recognition, it goes hand in hand. But what's your take on it? What's the importance of recognition in the business world?
That's a great point. Because there's a lot of small business owners out there, they don't often get recognized for the work that they do because they are the business owner. But this is an environment that creates that. And so it's a great place. Humans thrive on recognition.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a great place to show what you're made of, show what your business can do. How we do anything is how we do everything out there in the community. And this is the place to do it and be recognized for it.
I agree. It just makes you feel so much better when you get out of a meeting, when you are, for me, when I actually have the chance of recognizing others, you feel like great. And then you bring a smile to their face. They feel better. And it just makes your whole day go better, right? So just the little things in life.
We might be in business by ourselves or for ourselves, but we don't have to be in business by ourselves. We have a team that surround us. Being a part of a BNI community just really helps you feel like you're not alone.
For sure. Absolutely. Okay, so let's, we're almost coming to the end of the interview. And the question that I'd like to end our discussion is basically the pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. The changes, and mainly networking online. What is the difference between networking online, networking in person? What have you seen in terms of what works, what doesn't work? And what is your own personal opinion in terms of like what works best? Is it online, in person, hybrid?
I think what works best is what any business owner will participate in. And so if you thrive in the online environment and you love the Zoom because of the efficiency, then that's the place for you. It doesn't mean that you don't get the in-person business relationship development pieces. We still encourage it in the form of a one-to-one or chapter socials or business mixer. Of course, abiding by the local mandates and recommendations. But those chapters that are meeting in person, they love that and prefer that, and that's okay. So it's really up to each individual person to decide what it is they want. And if you want a combination, look for a hybrid chapter, and they get a little bit of both.
I agree. And I think also it's a matter of what worked before doesn't necessarily mean that it's working now or that that's the only way. So I think it's really the change management. Yeah. That's what we learned from these times, right? Because maybe before, I know for myself, like before I was doing everything in person. But then, when the pandemic happened, I had to pivot just like the rest of us, change, right? Mm-hmm. And we figured out what worked. And it's really that, what you did in terms of, and the entire BNI network, but what you did here in Oregon in terms, and Southwest Washington, in terms of transforming the chapters, we didn't even miss one meeting, honestly. We went immediately online and we continued to grow. We continued to give business to each other. We continued to be strong chapters. And maybe it was out of necessity because that at that point when we had the lockdown, we could not meet in person. Mm-hmm. So we had to switch very fast to that. It doesn't mean that this is the only way of doing it. But I think we all learned lessons of how we're utilizing our time. Do we really need to meet every single time in person, or can we make it count? But I think it's also developed new rules, new etiquettes, I know for myself, it's very easy to get distracted and do something else during an online meeting. So I had to have self-discipline to actually be there. Like you said, be there in the moment, participate, make everybody in the Zoom meeting important enough that you give them the attention and you don't give your attention to something else, right? Turn on your camera, show up like you are actually in an actual meeting. So all those things, if we actually keep it in, we can make the online, the virtual world very successful.
Absolutely.
Right. So I think it's what lessons we learned. Again, it's another core value of BNI's traditions and innovations, right? So we keep our traditions, but we innovate it in a way that actually fits the present. So I think that's important as well.
And it helps to keep everybody connected. That's the value of a really strong, supportive network. In the changing times that we're going through right now, this network is there. They have your back. They're your board of advisors, your sounding board. So you shouldn't feel alone. Everybody's going through the same thing, and you can go through it together as a team.
100%. Agreed. Well, Robin, it's been great to have you on the podcast with such an amazing conversation. And I hope our listeners really got the importance of having a system around your referral marketing and around your marketing.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.